Hi, my name's Anthony from Make a Difference with Records. We're a record store based in Godalming, raising funds for the mental health charity Catalyst. This is part one of a two-part interview with Sammy and Justine from Employed to Serve. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah,
pleasure to be. So, 4 years on from your last album, Conquering, which was phenomenally successful, did really, really, really well. I gather you've got a new album in the offing. Is it completely in the can? What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's all wrapped up and delivered to the label, so that's really exciting. So we're just doing the normal, doing photos, music videos now, and I feel like it's still very heavy metal, as always, but I think it's got a bit more anthemic feel to it now.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest distinction between this one and the last one, Conquering, I would say, is it's got more light and shade. I've said, if I had any sort of criticism over our past record, Conquering, it would be that it's like someone's turned the tap on full pelt and it doesn't sort of let up the entire time, you know. Right. It's kind of like, which obviously being a heavy metal band is kind of part of the parcel. It is unrelenting, but I feel with this record, it's kind of, we've once again explored some of the different influences from the band, and sort of there's more peaks and troughs and, you know, highs and lows in terms of the musical soundscape, if you see what I mean, rather than it just being an all-out assault on the senses from start to finish.
there were hints of that on Conquering. I mean, it was mainly full-on, but Universal Chokehold, the opening track, you know, you could have been listening to a lot of different bands in that first minute. And then, of course, you know something big's coming.
Yes,
but there were definitely contrasts there, and I thought more contrasts actually, and I thought the whole album sounded a fuller sound than some of your previous stuff.
Yeah, I mean, production-wise, it definitely was
more bells and whistles.
The happiest we've been. And speaking of bells and whistles, there's not literally bells and whistles in the new album, but we've definitely explored other sounds that we haven't before, so like, you know, synthesizers and stuff like this, and pads and
synthesizers.
Yeah, we've been quite heavily influenced by anyone who's sort of into the sort of more Scandinavian metal scene, where they've got, like, you know, for example, Children of Bodom or Amorphis and stuff like this.
Okay. Bit of Him as well.
Bit of Him,
right, okay.
That kind of stuff
Fantastic.
is definitely come in and influenced the new stuff.
Does it have a title, or can't you share that with us yet?
Can't share it yet, I'm afraid.
Oh, you tease.
I know. To be fair, it won't be too long, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, the most we can sort of divulge is that there won't be any new music this year, but early next year. But it's all fully in the can. It's all ready to go. We're kind of doing what we've never done before, and just allowing ourselves to have a lot of time to get all the extra bits done and dusted, like the music videos, and it's nice knowing that it's not coming out to next year, so we've got all this time just to get all of the other stuff done, you know, promo photos and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, because usually we're sort of rushing around trying to fit it in amongst touring and just other life stuff, and we all work full-time jobs as well, so it's always quite fun trying to fit it in. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite nice this time.
Yeah.
Is there a theme behind it, or are they very much individual songs?
There is kind of like all of it. We haven't done a concept record yet.
Yeah,
I
yes.
mean, maybe
There's
at
always
some
time.
point we will do one, but kind of similar to Conquering. I mean, as you might have picked up, the lyrical themes are definitely more looking on, as well as acknowledging the sort of downsides to life. It's definitely looking to the brighter sides and kind of
Yeah.
striving forward and, becoming just, happy in yourself and living a good life. So, Conquering obviously, as you might have heard, touches upon not just the bad side of life, but also the more positive side, and
Yeah.
trying to strive to become as happy as you can and comfortable in your skin. And the new record does exactly the same. It's built upon that, and it's carrying on that message.
Because Conquering, having been so successful, sometimes bands talk about the difficult album, either one that came after something
Right.
that was a huge step up and, gave you that kind of launch into perhaps a wider audience.
Yeah.
Has this felt difficult? It doesn't sound like it, listening to you.
No, the thing is, they are kind of all like difficult. Do you know what I mean? They're all sort of like, you always want to make sure you're creating your best work, and that in itself is difficult. So you
Yeah.
just want to be, make sure you're not sort of taking advantage of the fact you're doing well and just sort of like resting on your laurels. So I think.
But your
all albums are-
expectations,
Yeah.
you must feel the weight of expectation, don't you?
Yeah, I'd say so. But like, it's never been something that we've kind of really taken on board too much, because at the end of the day, we sort of do it so we enjoy it
Yeah.
more than anything. And I feel like we're fairly self-aware on things that don't work, or if we're sort of like
Right.
filling like the album with songs that aren't like 100%.
Yeah, and we've always kind of thrived a little bit on throwing the odd kind of curveball in there, because our musical evolution definitely hasn't been without a few people along the way being like, oh, I don't know about this or that direction and stuff. But obviously, as long as people do like it, that's the main thing. And I kind of feel that breeds for a more interesting experience. When we've put songs out before and there's been a few people being like, whoa, I didn't expect him to go this way and I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Obviously you don't want to alienate your fans. You always want to kind of
Yeah.
have that stamp of what you're all about.
The
and
core of who
Yeah.
you are, I guess.
that's it.
Yeah,
But
and
I think it's nice to not to, I don't want to sound like we're challenging people as if we're making really like challenging music, but it's
Yeah.
nice to kind of keep things interesting and make people second guess what's coming
I
next.
think what's really helpful as well, like we're all as band members very good at like listening to metal and listening to new metal and like as well as the
Yeah.
classics, and
Yeah.
I think that bleeds into anything we write. We sort of
Okay.
like feel like it sort of stays current. We're not stuck to the same albums we used to listen to as teenagers, because
Yeah.
it's so easily done when you're in a band. You sort of get stuck in like listening to sort of the old albums because you're so concentrating so much on touring in your own
Yeah.
band. I think it's important to have that overall sort of like knowledge of what's happening right now, and just sort of like it kind of, it's a bit more organic, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about that. When people talk about you, they often use different adjectives in terms of genre. Hardcore, crossover, mathcore, death. I mean, people kind of are not really sure sometimes how to describe you as a metal band.
Yeah.
And do you think that's because of the way you've evolved, or would you describe yourself as a particular genre?
100%. Like, I feel like when we started, we were definitely more hardcore leaning. It was just
Yeah.
sort of a product of what we were listening to at the time, and our musical
Okay.
taste as we've gotten older has changed, and thus our album sounds have. And we started it at such a young age. I think we were like 19, 20 when we started the band, so
Yeah.
I feel like maturity kind of plays into a lot of it as well, and in terms of songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, when we first started, we were listening to a lot of mathcore and hardcore type bands, like which heavily influenced our style. And as it went on, I think we just kind of wanted to diversify. We kind of did that first album, and it was quite chaotic and mathy.
Okay.
And once we'd done that, we were like, okay, cool. We feel like we've kind of expressed ourselves through that type of music now, and we don't really have any want to like go down that path any further.
Yeah.
And to me, especially, like it seemed like a greater challenge rather than writing a song where it was like one riff and then another riff and another riff and nothing ever repeated. I was like, I'd actually quite like to have a go at writing songs where it's a verse and a chorus, but the idea of making that verse and chorus catchy or stand out enough that it works and it keeps the listeners interested, you know.
I mean, Mark of the Grave was kind of a little bit like that.
Absolutely,
I mean, particularly with the
yeah.
juxtaposition of you two, very different stylistically.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And melodies, like in recent years, has been a big
Yeah.
part of.
It's a great
our
video,
sound.
by the way.
Oh,
Thank you.
good one. Yeah,
It was fun.
Justin's
It look-
cameo as the manager.
It looks like I had a lot of fun. I assumed it was you. I wasn't sure.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was a very convincing disguise.
You
but,
had to be the boss then.
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
what it was? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was definitely a product of being stuck in lockdown for ages and just wanting to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted something very light-hearted for both those videos.
Oh
Didn't
yeah, absolutely. Like having, you know, I think as most people probably experienced during the lockdown was a pretty
Yeah.
bleak time, you know. So when it came time to do the music videos, we were like, let's do something kind of light-hearted and fun and just
Yeah.
enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
That was the MO,
It was
wasn't
lovely.
it?
Yeah, we filmed it
Yeah.
in was it St Ives in Cornwall,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and yeah, it was just quite nice. We had a little working holiday because we were allowed to during that part of the lockdown. It was like different imaginations of it, but yeah, it was good.
What does the writing process look like for you guys? Do you come up with something that you want to express yourselves about a topic, and then the music comes from that, or do you just jam and the music comes and then you lay something over the top of it? What does that look? What does it look like?
I would say like the music idea usually comes before like the lyrical subjects. Like, I mean, sometimes there might be like a little embryo in mine or Justine's head of like, oh, actually, when there's a new song that needs lyrics, that might be like a cool subject to sort of, you know, to touch upon. But for the most part, the music will come first, and then I find at least it's usually like a title or, you know, or a lyric that will just pop out and you go, oh, that sounds kind of catchy. Let's maybe work
Yeah.
on, like, I mean, Mark of the Grave, for example. I can't remember exactly, but I'm certain that probably came to mind first, and it was like, okay, how can we build
around it,
upon
yeah.
that? Yeah, because quite often it will be like a chorus that's written first, and then the rest will.
It's
kind
got
of
to be that
fall
one
into-
line that sort of like, you know, is the anchor of it all, the kind of lyric that you Tipp-Ex on your bag when you're a teenager.
Yeah. So very much hook driven first and foremost, is it? And then
Nowadays,
builds on it.
especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're obviously always going to be a heavy metal band, but I think we also want to try and write songs that, you know, not everything we do, but some of the songs we write, we'd like the idea of it's like, this is a song first and foremost, and if you transferred it into any genre, it could still work. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily just like, has to be a metal song. It can just be
It's also
a song, you know.
so much more fun like playing live as well when there's like a chorus or like a particular bit that the crowd grabs onto. Like for us playing, that's far more
the
enjoyable.
echo
Yeah.
that the crowds love. Yeah.
Well, it's a bit
Yeah.
more of a connection, especially like, you know, as you kind of play things like festival stages where you're
Yeah.
so far from the crowd, you feel a bit more connected to them. Because, you know, back when we were younger, we were just like, how many riffs can we fit in a song? Let's like be impossible for people to nod onto and nod
Yeah.
along to. So,
Although
yeah.
there are 10,000 people singing "You're Dead to Me" back to you might not be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
good for the ego.
yeah.
Don't take it personally,
Yeah.
Justine. No, don't
What did I
really
do?
mean it. I mean, in terms of the lyric side of things, I mean, you did an interview a while ago, and you actually went through the album Conquering, and you actually went through each track and explained what it was about. And the one thing that was very obvious from that is that a lot of those songs, and in fact a lot of your previous songs, very much focus on what you perceive as either societal pressures or injustices. And in fact, it goes with the fact that, you know, a lot of the music is quite angry. You know, people feeling angry about stuff. Is that primarily a cathartic experience for you, or are you really talking on behalf of other people when you write that stuff?
I I think it's quite cathartic. It's very therapeutic screaming. It's kind of almost like I kind of liken it to a sprint or like a fast run. You kind of like it's a nice way of sort of relieving stress, and I think the heavy metal genre in general is like that for everyone, especially with all the mosh pits and sort of like the high energy nature of like the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it is.
Yeah, it's like taking that negative energy and, you know, as corny as it might sound, kind of putting that into something positive, you know, and doing something that is an enjoyable experience rather than, you know, just getting sort of burnt out about it or, you know, lashing out in a bad way.
Do you think the lyrics get lost sometimes, though?
So I think maybe on a cursory listen they could do. I think because obviously sometimes if you just put on a metal track and there's a lot of screaming, you won't necessarily decipher the lyrics straight away.
Yeah.
But I think with
It's half the fun of it, though, isn't it?
well, that's it.
Making up your own.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've had a few of those in our time.
Misheard lyrics.
On that note, I'll tell you a funny story. My wife, is it the Harry Styles song "Watermelon Sugar High"? My wife was once in the kitchen. The kids were home, and the kids going, "Mum, what are you singing?" And she was singing "One of Them Should Have Died." She genuinely thought were the lyrics to the chorus.
Thinking like, this is some dark
Some
lyrics,
heavy stuff. Didn't expect that from Harry Styles.
Chorus though.
That's one for your next album.
Absolutely, just take that.
Anyway, I digress. So we were talking about the lyrical side. So, I mean, I was thinking about it from the perspective of people that are perhaps relatively new to the genre.
Yes.
Or they might know the genre, but they know it from the kind of traditional 70s bands, you know, Black Sabbaths, etc. And they're coming into a slightly more extreme genre, I guess, of metal music. How do people kind of first get into it? How do you find... You must know people that presumably weren't into sort of relatively heavy brand of metal and got into it. How does it happen?
Oh, like with drugs, there's gateway bands. There's...
So who's a gateway band then that you'd recommend for people?
For me personally, obviously, they're probably, depending on the age of the listener, it might be a bit too old for them now, but like Linkin Park was a huge one.
Okay.
Because when I was younger, I was like into like Jay-Z and like 50 Cent and stuff like that, and they did was it Reanimation? With Linkin Park.
Right.
That, and then Limp Bizkit, because it had the sort of rap metal sort of crossover.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's quite hard to sort of like immediately get into like the really sort of shouty metal.
Yeah.
So like, it's good to have sort of like that sort of chorusy sort of blanket into it. So yeah, I did that, and then I guess Red Hot Chili Peppers was like the first guitar band I listened to.
Okay, I wasn't expecting you to come up with that one.
Yeah, it was just what was popular at the time.
I guess so,
that, and like the Now CDs were always bought in my house.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Had Nickelback, like Blink-182, Sum 41, like all of the bands like that. And then from then I kind of got onto Kerrang TV and Scuzz TV. Because music TV was like a huge thing for me growing up. I used to watch it before school. Because like then like CDs were like £20, so I could only afford like one a month with my pocket money. So yeah.
You were given pocket money. Wow.
Cleaning cars.
And in the writing process, do you always have one eye to what it's going to sound like live?
A little bit, yeah. Or I think it's most importantly, it's like, will this translate well? Well, yeah, like you're saying, will it translate well live? But it's not. I wouldn't say it's like the top of like our concerns, but
it sort of, it will be if like when deciding a set list. There's some album songs that we're like, oh, that's great as an album song, and like we won't necessarily put it in the set list.
Yeah, or we'll play it like on a special occasion if we're like playing the whole record in its entirety or something.
Well,
like
you're doing
that,
Conquering in full,
yeah,
aren't you?
We're very excited about that.
So there's one song on that. Well, we're going to play. There's two songs we haven't played. We're playing one of them this weekend. And then the other one we're going to play...
One because it's really hard.
And then the other one because it's a tricky one. That.
Yeah.
What, rehearsals?
Yeah, we're going to have to rehearse a lot.
Yeah.
Do the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Just waiting for AI to do it for us.
Yeah.
Doing the ABBA.
Don't get me started on AI.
Oh, God,
that's an interesting
a whole can of worms in itself.
One of the things about heavy metal is it's still very dominated. It's very male-dominated, although people like yourself are doing a lot to take it away from that, but it's still a very male-centric, music genre from a crowd perspective. Have you seen a big shift in a better direction recently or not?
Oh, massively.
Yeah,
even from So what we've been going, 11 years?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, like even from when I started to now, like it's so much more diverse, which is really nice. I think just sort of like, you know, the internet and social media is a
Yeah.
huge thing for that, and having more women represented. I think also magazines as well are like are more on board with sort of like, you know, making sure it's more diverse in the bands they cover.
Okay.
And yeah, like I've seen a massive shift. Obviously, like it's still more male dominated,
Yeah.
but I think it's still like it's like kind of changing quite a lot now.
You see it at Download, don't you? I mean,
Lot
that
of
was
young
always a good
girls.
way to kind of sort of like a good barometer for that,
Yeah.
I'd say. 'Cause
Yeah.
you know, go in there when I was like maybe 14 or something, we were chatting about it earlier, there was that kind of stereotypical metal kind of meathead kind of vibe of
Yeah,
like, you're
yeah.
not allowed to be into this if like, you know, you dress a certain way, or
Yeah.
you know, if you don't know X, Y and Z band. And I feel like that's definitely, the gatekeeper aspect of it's definitely died down a lot. And going to the festival now, you know, almost 20 years on, it's definitely a different vibe, and
Yeah.
a lot more women there, and just
It's not just in metal either. I think in general, like sports, like women's teams are getting more like, you know, airtime, you know, women's weightlifting and things like
Yeah.
that. I just think it's like a nice shift of young women realizing they can do everything
Yeah.
like they want to. It's not, you know, a boy's, you know, hobby.
Yeah, I wasn't sure
absolutely.
whether it's so much about can, it was more about perception, maybe, because from the outside, historically, it's looked very, very male.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
if you don't
absolutely.
see yourself represented, it's
Yeah,
not in. It's
yeah.
like, you know, you're kind of in your head. You're like, oh, you know, people don't do that, girls don't do that. So it's like, yeah, because it's like the visibility of it. You kind of it kind of plants that seed of being like, oh, maybe I would enjoy this.
Well,
you
more
know?
people like you fronting bands, obviously, has got to change things hugely, you hope, over time. And the more we have of that, the better it's going to be, hopefully.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
and it's fun as well. It's
On,
nice.
on the vocal side, what you do, I'm not a professional singer. In fact, I'm not even a singer. But I know that what you do vocally is actually really difficult. And I know that it's something you've had to work on over time. What's the thing you found hardest?
When we go out to clubs and stuff, not singing along. Like if we go to like a metal club or like, you know, a normal club with like all the, because I like pop music as well a lot, is like, yeah, not singing along.
See, in between
Yeah.
the gigs, that's
It's the
hard part,
talking.
isn't it?
The
Yeah.
talking is the worst part. Like I can, you know, shout to the cows come home, but it's just, yeah, talking loudly. Especially like sometimes talking to fans at the merch table when the music is too loud.
Okay.
That's a nightmare on the voice. It's like, yeah, just talking too much.
And you have to space your gigs out accordingly, I assume.
To
make sure
yeah,
you
I
rest.
mean, we kind of have to do every day because it's too expensive to have off days. So yeah,
Right.
I just have to keep my mouth shut.
Sounds like an ideal relationship, Sammy. But
Yeah. Well, yes, probably more so from me. I'm definitely the happy one for sure. So, like, but yeah, I mean, it is really just the talking, isn't it? I mean, it's helped because we still always go out to the merch stall like after the gig and say
Yeah.
hello, because that's a big part of it for us. But when we were manning the merch table all night ourselves,
Yeah.
that was when it was
That was
tricky
killer.
because you'd just be talking all night, and that's really when your voice gets tired.
I think that accessibility part is so important. A lot of artists are just completely inaccessible.
Yeah.
They get to a certain point where they get a certain success, and you just can't get near them.
Yeah.
You have to go through the management. They don't come to the merch table.
Yeah.
You don't really see them outside of the actual gig itself.
Yeah, it's nice for us as well because it's very validating, like kind of speaking to people who are a fan of your music. Because sometimes
Yeah.
you know it's like as much fun as it is hard. Like we're sort of like, you know, it's basically a full-time hobby. You know, and we have to fit it in our evenings and when we're not working, and you know, touring sort of, you know, depending on where you are, especially Europe, the drives are really long.
Yeah.
So you're tired and
Yeah,
you know, a
yeah,
bit sore
yeah,
from loading
yeah.
in. It's like it kind of makes it worth it when you know, get to speak to someone who's travelled a long way or just has been a fan for a while. It
Yeah.
kind of makes it feel more worth
Bit
it.
of giving back as
Yeah,
well.
I think it helps stopping you from getting jaded as well because I think it is
Yes.
quite isolating if you sort of have that
Yeah.
removal from fans.
Yeah. Do you get honest feedback or just adoration?
Bit of both.
Bit of both. Hopefully more the second. But
Yeah, the Europeans are notorious for their honest feedback.
Oh, okay.
My favourite one, this one wasn't directed at us, but we were on tour with the band once, and someone came up to the guitar player from the band and he says, "Oh, I can tell you're not using backing tracks because I can hear your mistakes."
Oh, nice.
And I think the person meant it as a compliment to be like, I don't think he was
You're
saying like
organic,
you're
yeah.
making like loads of mistakes, but he was like, I can tell you're actually playing.
He could have
you know?
stopped at the first bit, couldn't he?
Yeah, I
I'm
could
really
tell you-
pleased you're not using backing tracks.
It was
Stop.
yeah, it was quite funny
Oh,
to
it's fun,
overhear
though.
for sure.
So on the touring side, I mean, you know, with the support tour you did with Gojira, playing some big stadiums. I mean,
Yes.
Oh, it's silly.
that's just silly. I mean, did you guys take it in your stride, or were you frightened witless?
I think luckily by that point we'd played enough festival stages that when we went to those larger venues it wasn't
Okay.
as horrifying. But definitely on like the first couple of shows we were like, oh, okay, there's people.
We were the thing. I mean, it sounds stressful, but it almost kind of worked to our advantage. We almost didn't have any time to really think about it because the first couple of shows we did, particularly the first one in Belgium,
Yeah.
Gojira overran their sound check, which I mean is totally fine because it's their gig, and you know they've got
They can
massive
do what they
credit.
want.
They
It's
can
just
do what they
the
want.
start of the tour,
They
isn't
don't
it?
get
So
hummus.
it just takes a while.
Exactly. As long as we get our hummus, we're fine. And so we had like 10, 15 minutes to
Yeah,
get
fair.
set up, and there was a few things that weren't quite right. And
Okay.
we have like an in-ear rig and stuff, which is most of the time easy to set up, but like we were kind of road testing.
So it was
at
just
that
Bosch.
point.
You were in there, and that was
Yeah,
it.
also at the beginning of tours there's always teething issues of just
Yeah.
sort of setting up. Like as soon as you kind of get third, fourth show in, you're sort of like clockwork and it's like smooth as anything. But
Yeah.
it's always the first sort of like working out new kinks and the rig and stuff like that. But
Do you
yeah.
ever get stage fright?
I get nervous. I think I find it more nerve-wracking talking to the crowd, especially if they're a bit of a cold crowd and they're like not really there for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. I've seen a
But
few
yeah,
of
and
those.
sort of like going back to the bigger stages, I actually get more nervous at the smaller stages when I can get. I
Oh,
can
you feel
see
more exposed, do you? Is
when I
that-
can see
Yeah.
people's individual faces because it's
Okay.
so easy to see when you've lost
Yeah.
someone and they're like not interested anymore. That's more off-putting to me.
Okay.
Whereas if you give me, I don't know,
Sea of
10,000
flesh.
people, they
Yeah.
look like little pebbles, so I can't see individual expressions. So that's
Okay.
fine for me.
So you never had that moment, you're in the mid-song and you kind of, I've no idea where I am.
Oh yeah, no, I have.
No one
You
noticed
just-
though, hopefully.
I just sort of just turn around and sort of go, oh, here I am. Yeah, it's just it's human. I think at the end of the day, that's why people come see you play. I think the really good one for that is when, not to call him out, but James Hetfield. I think he slid too high on the fret for one of his riffs, like you know a stadium show,
Okay.
Yeah.
and he just went, oh.
It's in that bit in
But
Master
if
of Puppets
Hetfield,
where it's
like, was-
noticeable.
Well,
isn't
there you
it?
go.
It's
it was,
like, oh man.
you know, it was a doozy. But like, do you know what I mean? It's like even Hetfield makes mistakes. It's like it's part of being human, and I think it's a bit more endearing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, if you want
I
to hear
think.
the record, stay at home, right?
exactly.
Yeah. You know what I
mean?
Exactly.
It's
So
funny.
how did you get the Gojira gig?
It came about, so they were over here doing a few shows in 2019,
Right.
and a friend of ours band who aren't going anymore called Black Peaks, they were on the bill, and their singer had some health issues at the time and had to drop out of a bunch of shows, so they dropped out the show very last minute.
Okay.
And Gojira had heard of us, so we just randomly on Instagram, we got a message from their tour manager being like, would you last minute be able to just jump on the
Was
show?
that the whooping around the bedroom moment?
Yeah, it was
was.
cool. We've been listening to Gojira for like years.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's
Yeah.
over a decade. I think.
They're like my sort of like claim to fame of seeing them in a small venue. So there's a band called Obituary I went to go see when I was 14, and Gojira were the support band, and we were playing in this
okay.
like tiny club. So
Yeah.
you know, we've been listening to him since way back then.
Yeah.
You know, since we were teenagers.
Yeah, we got to see him for free for 2 months straight. It was great.
Yeah, which is incredible. But that's how it came about. Unfortunately we couldn't do those shows that they initially asked us to do, but that kind of was the catalyst for this tour coming up later on.
Yeah, because
you
we were
know.
very much like, please ask us again because, we want to
Yeah.
do
We'd love
this.
to do some
I think we
shows.
had work or something.
And you're still playing some big venues, some festivals. You've got Core in Glasgow this weekend,
Yeah,
I
we
believe,
do.
3rd of
That's
August.
correct.
I love
yeah.
Glasgow.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
Is that
city.
you've done that before? Have you, Core or not?
No, it's our first. It's quite a new festival. I think it's only been going 1 or 2 years.
Oh,
This
okay.
is
Not
the second
mistaken.
year, yeah.
But yeah, great lineup.
In Glasgow's always.
And then
Yeah.
Misery Loves Company in
Yeah,
Bristol,
in Bristol.
28th of September.
Yeah,
Looking forward to that one.
very much
Yeah,
so.
it was just quite nice because this year we're sort of like we are sort of managing to cover most of the UK on like for one-offs, and it's like
Yeah.
nice just to get to spend some time in the cities.
Yeah, we can't because like last year we had a sort of flat out summer where we were away for like a whole month, and since the new record's not coming until next year, we're like, let's go easy this year, kind of save all our chips for 2025, but let's make sure we're playing at least one show every month that's kind of covering some part of the UK that people can
Covers
get
the
to, you know.
bases.
It keeps you loose as well, which is
Yeah,
always
keeps
good.
the cobwebs from setting.
Yeah.
And then Damnation Festival beginning of November.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
ideal because we're sort of playing Conquering and Fall there, and it's sort of like a, you know, a nice bookend of the album cycle now.
Yeah.
Because the album's like 3 years old now, which blows my mind in a
It's
couple
gone
months.
so quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, the COVID, because like we've had 2 COVID albums. Like Conquering came out in 2021,
Yes.
and then Eternal Forward Motion came out in 2019. So it's like we only had a 6-month touring cycle of that before lockdown.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of really weirdly skewed my sort of view of the time a little bit. It doesn't feel that long
Don't jinx
ago.
it though, we'll have like a swarm of locusts that's going to take
Oh,
over
yeah.
in 2025 if we're not careful.
Those hungry locusts.
So I know you can't tell us the name or the exact release date, but if we're looking at a release for the new album in 2025, does that imply a headline tour to promote it then?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you got
yeah.
dates I know you probably can't tell us, but have you got dates lined up for that?
Not confirmed
Don't
yet,
know.
but yeah, like it'll be fun though. It'll
Yeah.
be good. We'll be busy.
Are you going to play some more intimate venues or just the bigger festivals?
Oh, we'll do like
mixture.
some club shows, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I like
Absolutely.
the club shows.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the intimate venues.
Yeah.
Well, I say not too intimate, but the more intimate venues. So
Yeah.
it's good that you're doing a blend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
keeps it fun, doesn't it? When
Yeah.
It's a mixture.
One of the things I was going to ask you, as you guys have become more and more successful, and you have, this is the truth of it. I mean, you look at Spotify and you've got like 1.6 million streams for one of your tracks. It's just crazy when you think about it. But you earn about
It
10p.
is when-
You earn about
yeah.
10p for that probably, which
Yeah.
is which is
Yeah.
a travesty. But anyway, obviously more successful, more demands on you, more expectations, probably more touring. Where does that leave you with Church Road Records? Are you going to have to delegate a lot more, or?
We've got
question.
a nice sort of even sort of routine with Church Road. We kind of, because we sort of schedule in the releases quite far at a time, we can kind of look at our schedule and be like, oh,
Okay.
let's push this back to here. And I think the main thing we sort of do is like when we're away, we get someone to fulfill our mail order. And then if we're extra busy, we sort of outsource press. And
Okay.
then that's about it. And everything else is like very easily doable from the road. And
Is
I
it
actually-
literally just the two of you then?
Yeah,
It
just
is,
the two
yeah.
of us, and we sort of like sometimes get freelance people to help. But like,
I mean,
because
that
it's
sounds
so,
nuts. Just
Yeah,
the two
it's-
of you doing it.
It's fun though. Like it's one of those things I don't mind how much hard work it is, if that makes sense, because
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
feel like I'm working. And I'm just grateful to be out of retail. Not there's anything wrong with working in retail.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
personally hated it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just grateful not to be doing that or my call center job. So,
It's nice to have the routine on tour as well, because obviously we're still working when we go away.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of like hurry up and wait when you're on tour. So it's nice to actually have something to fill
Yeah.
the time with rather than just twiddling our thumbs in the
so
green room.
we
can-
play from half an hour to an hour, and then the rest of the day is just I don't know, just nothing, just
filling it
waiting
with
around.
stuff, you know.
So
Yeah.
it kind of keeps my brain from rotting a little bit because I can just sit and scroll otherwise. So it's nice to actually
Yeah.
do some work and
'Cause
makes
we-
time
yeah,
go.
we
Gives a bit
managed-
of routine too, doesn't it?
It does, and we managed to navigate like our busiest year last year, or like busiest year Church Road wise and busiest year touring wise for ETS.
Okay.
And we managed to make it work. I think the most difficult thing was just making sure we had someone here to fulfill orders, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's since we've only had someone being able to do it like for the time being. I think that'll be the main thing next year. Will be maybe we have to delegate it to full time to someone at
Yeah.
certain points of the year and things like that.
I mean, in terms of the music industry more generally, obviously things like Church Road Records are really important for artists who are really trying to get established and get heard and get distributed. Do you think it's easier now for bands to be distributed, or do you think it's getting more and more difficult?
That's a good question.
Bit of both. So it's sort of it's easier to self-release because
Yes.
you can. I feel like audio, like recording equipment's super cheap these days.
Yeah.
You have distribution places like CD Baby and TuneCore where you can
Yeah.
upload your own
Yeah.
music. So
Yeah.
it kind of negates the need to always have a label, which is good, and it makes artists a bit more independent. However, there is also a lot of competition still, and sometimes because there is so many options, it's
Yeah.
hard to know which way to go. So yeah, having the
Okay.
direction of like a team or something like that is
Yeah.
still invaluable.
Yeah,
so it's a bit
I mean,
both.
my perception, and it's only a perception, is that it's easier to get your music out there, but it's much more difficult to get noticed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's just so much of it.
And there's so many sort of pitfalls. Like, so for example, like a recent one is fraudulent streams. So there's those of these companies that try and like appear legitimate, and they'll go, oh, like for, I don't know, X amount, we'll
Yeah.
get you 5 million streams, but that's fraudulent. But loads of, you know, because it's packaged nicely and looks like a professional thing, bands are paying for it and then
Okay.
getting banned from Spotify and things like that. So there's loads of like,
Okay.
there's always something like, you know, you have to look out for still. And like, yeah, it's just sort of evolved basically from like, you know, CDs and stuff. It's
And I
just,
guess if you know, you know. If you're new to the business, you might not have a clue. So
exactly.
Yeah, always, yeah.
You know, this nice person's offering to make me famous, you know. It's, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like the music industry evolves, and so do the sort of the shady people as well, I suppose. Is
Yeah.
always the always the way.
And what's your thought about the resurgence of vinyl? Has that been good for you guys or not?
Yeah, it's been
I mean,
good. Like, so lockdown, it was insane. Like, it was super popular. But we found recently there's been a bit of a drop in vinyl sales because of cost of living
Yeah.
and general
Yeah,
expense. Like,
yeah,
to
that's
sort of
true.
give you an idea, since 2020, I was looking at old invoices. I don't know why I did it to myself, but it's doubled in price to press vinyl now
Which
from
is just
when I
crazy,
like
isn't it?
was when we started full time in 2020. It's like,
Okay.
I think it's almost more than doubled now.
That's because of profiteering, I assume, is it?
I think it's a bit of both. It's like kind of keeping profit margins up, but also sort of the resources needed for vinyl and just, you know, turbulent world issues and things like
Yeah.
that. It's like so many different things going into it. I remember like during lockdown, we had vinyl delays because like cardboard stock in the EU was
Oh yeah, if it
non-existent.
wasn't one thing, it was another.
I think
as
they
well.
blamed Amazon for it because everyone's buying stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, Adele got blamed at one point.
Adele
and it was-
Adele definitely got blamed. She got blamed for absorbing 6 months of production, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of everything really. There wasn't like one factor.
The vinyl pellets at
Um,
one point as well.
But yeah, interestingly, we've seen more people buying CDs because they're cheaper.
Yeah, we have too on the second-hand side.
Which I'm
definitely.
really happy about
Yeah.
because they're so easy to make. They take like 10 days to make over 3
Yeah, yeah,
months.
yeah.
Cheaper to make and
Yeah.
easier to store. So
But you don't get the artwork though in the same
No,
way. So
no.
Conquering,
This is
for
the thing.
example, I love the artwork on Conquering. I think that's
Thank
a
you.
brilliant sleeve. I don't know who did that.
Oh, Luke Priest. Yeah,
Okay.
he nailed it, didn't he?
yeah,
I absolutely love that cover.
yeah. With his charity case, he does Metallica and Primus.
Yeah,
and
so
that
the
usually.
posters on the
He's,
wall. Yeah, these are.
okay.
Yeah, so he's
They
got
can't
quite
see
an
it,
extensive
but-
CV.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
Steve, he's pretty damn impressive
It's
in
like
that case.
Metallica,
Yeah.
Slayer, employed
Got
to
to
serve.
serve. Yeah.
Was that easy to persuade him or?
Well, yeah. Okay. Fortunately for us, so he was friends with a chap who's done cover up for us before. Gary, who does Bite Radius designs, and he says, "Meet my friend Luke. He's a big fan, and he'd love to work with you guys." And that's how it came to be. So he, in a way, he kind of sought us out, I guess, in a sense, and
Yeah.
we've managed to kind of keep him on board. You know, keep him sweet.
Did he have the title for the album before he did the cover, or were they done
Yeah,
independently?
yeah,
he
we sort of
did.
have a rough idea of the brief. I mean, he very much sort of runs with it and does his own thing,
Yeah.
but we have like a little small outline.
We always
Don't
like to kind of tie our album covers together if we can. So if you like look at Conquering and Eternal Forward Motion, there's like, you know, the
Similarities.
crossover with like the cogs and all
Yeah,
those
yeah,
kinds
It's
of
like
yeah,
things.
Pixar,
and
right? Like every film has like a little nod to some previous
Little Easter egg.
little
yeah.
Easter egg. Yeah.
Yeah, looks like My Crazy World, all those cogs, I think.
Yeah,
Sums me
absolutely.
up nicely, the Conquering front cover.
Yeah, we were happy because he nailed the brief because we wanted it to look like it could be a metal record, but at the same time we didn't want it to be obviously a metal record. We wanted there to be that kind of
Yeah.
intrigue. You look at it and go like, I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what this sounds like. You know, I want to check it out.
We were so desperate for a bit of like ray of sunshine during the pandemic. We just deliberately went for bright and colourful. Like,
Yeah.
Just amazing album cover, really love it.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I'm going to finish on 2 bits of trivia. So the first bit of trivia, I've just got a question for you, Sammy, because in
Right.
doing the research for these kind of interviews, you obviously look at historic interviews you've done and all that kind of stuff. And there was one interview you did, and you used the phrase Brucey bonus.
A Brucey bonus.
And I was thinking to myself, you cannot be that old. Where did you get Brucey bonus from?
I think, I mean, because it's Bruce Forsyth, right?
It is?
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, you've done your research,
I have
clearly.
done my research, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think I know it from its original context, but I obviously know Bruce throughout the years of being one of the best TV presenters, but I think my mum says it a lot.
Okay.
So
I just feel like it's in the British lexicon.
Yeah, I
a
feel
bit,
like
do you know
Brucey
what I mean?
bonus
it just made me
is.
chuckle.
Yeah.
I just
It's like double bubble,
coming out,
like-
coming out of
yeah.
your mouth. I thought just really made me crack
Just sounds
up.
nice.
I
doesn't
think
it?
maybe like nowadays it's not as prominent as it used to be, but I swear growing up you just
No,
hear
you're
Brucey
absolutely right.
bonus
It
just
is. It's
everywhere.
probably in the dictionary now somewhere, isn't
Yeah.
it? But and the other thing I was going to ask you, Justine, was The Guardian, who are clearly fans of yours because you've done quite a few. They've done quite a few reviews, very favourable reviews of your stuff. One of the critics described your voice as a velociraptor that had trodden on a upturned plug. Do you think that's a fair description?
Oh yeah. I like dinosaurs a lot. I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, so I was pretty happy about that.
Oh, there you go, sir. It's
Monster noises.
street
it's
cred.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge compliment.
I just want to say thank you both for spending the time today to talk to me about your plans. Look forward to seeing you guys hopefully on the road
Thanks for visiting us in our fortress.
Sunny Woking.
next year. Yeah, the den,
Yeah.
the den,
The greenhouse.
headquarters. Well, listen, that's the end of part one. You'll see us for part two.
Thank you very much.
That was part one of a two-part interview with Employed to Serve. Check out the second part on our YouTube channel and podcast channel. That's My Vinyl Answer.